And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to be making a quick, easy meal. We're going to make a very easy fruit crisp that we're going to start with, because life is short. Start with dessert first. Then we're going to make a wonderful fresh vegetable soup, and to serve alongside that we are going to make a turkey and roasted red pepper sandwich. But we're going to get started on the dessert because that's going to take the longest to cook. Now I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. Anytime I can get fruit worked into dessert, I do that. If you've watched this show, you know that, because I'm a huge fan of fruit-based desserts. So that's where we're going to start. The other day, about a week or so ago, I was at home and I had some fruit in my refrigerator that I needed to get used up. And I'm like, well, what can I do? And I'm like, make a crisp out of it, because that's one of my favorite things to do. So you could use any kind of combination of fruit that your family likes. I'm using today some raspberries, some beautiful, I have a pint of fresh raspberries. You could use strawberries. At home I use strawberries because that's what I had. But the raspberries look so good today, and I just love raspberries. So we've got a pint of fresh raspberries. I am just using a can, a small 14-ounce can of sliced peaches, and I'm using the kind that are in the real light syrup, but I've drained those, pretty much drained all that liquid off there. And I'm using some frozen blueberries. Now, if you can find some good fresh blueberries and they're in season, use that. I'm just using a 16-ounce bag of just frozen blueberries, and that's the combination of fruit that I'm using. But like I said, you could absolutely, let me grab a spoon here. You could use any kind of fruit that your family likes. Absolutely anything. If peaches are wonderful and sweet and juicy, use fresh peaches. Just slice them, peel them and slice them. You could use blackberries, you could use raspberries, you could use any kind of fruit that your family likes. Now, to this mixture, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and that is just to thicken up the juices that are going to come out of the fruit. Number one, the blueberries were frozen. I thawed them for just a few minutes, but not too long. But the fruit naturally is going to exude a lot of liquid, and the cornstarch will help to thicken it. Just kind of stir that in. It's important, I know it sounds weird, but you need to add just a pinch of salt because that brings out the flavors. Then use a baking dish, whatever kind of baking dish that you have. I just have this round little pie dish, but you could use a 8x8 baking dish or one of your little pretty little white baking dishes that you have. Just something that you can fit the fruit in on, in a single layer, and it not be too full, because you want to have room for all that wonderful topping, because trust me, you will want the topping. It is scrumptiously good, absolutely scrumptious. So, get my blueberry stain up there. Set that aside for just a minute. Now I'm going to do this one a little different. We have made some crisps before, but I have found a little secret that if you pulse it all together in the food processor, it goes on much more evenly and it just cooks up beautifully. I have 1 cup of just the old-fashioned oats. Now, I am not using the instant oats. I'm using the old-fashioned oats. I have a 1/2 cup of just plain white flour. You could use all-purpose or wheat, whichever one you have. 1/2 cup of just plain white sugar. 1/2 cup of, now I had a good question here. I had a viewer email me and said, how do you measure brown sugar? When you say packed, do you pack it real tight, or do you measure a 1/2 cup and then pack it? You just pack it lightly into your measuring container, and when you release it, it should just barely hold its shape together. Just lightly pack it in there. And I have 1/2 cup. I love brown sugar. It just goes so well with everything. And I have a tablespoon of cinnamon. because I really, really like cinnamon. Now, I'm just going to quickly, real fast, just pulse that together. When someone says to pulse, this is what that means. Just a quick little pulse on the little machine operates, whatever button operates your machine. Don't turn it all the way on, just pulse it. That's what that means. Now, I have 1 stick of butter, cold, and I always use unsalted butter because I like to control the amount of salt in my food. I prefer real butter, but if you want to use margarine, I guess in this particular recipe you could, but the flavor of butter is just so much better. And honestly, you know, if you think about it, this is going to serve probably 8 people. You're not really going to end up eating all that much butter, but if it's a concern for you, you could in this recipe use margarine. I like butter. All right, and I'm just going to cut it into cubes. I cut it into 4 pieces, and then I'm just going to cut it into cubes. It's cold. You want it to be cold, not room temperature. We're going to put it in our oat mixture. And you don't have to be perfect on that. Just get it in there somehow. Again, add just a pinch of salt. By pinch, I mean I'll show you what I mean by a pinch. Now, this is kosher salt. Just a little, tiny little bit in your hand is all that means. Just a pinch, just to bring out the flavors in the product. Again, you're going to pulse it about 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, what you're doing when you do that is you see the little pieces of butter that look about the size of peas? That's exactly what you want. That's perfect. So take your crisp. This couldn't be easier. And be careful. The blades on these food processors are very, very sharp. And then just put your wonderful, wonderful filling over top of that. And then, you know, the best tools are your hands, clean hands. God gave you the best tools to use for cooking. Just make sure they're clean. And spread that out over it. 350 degrees, put it in there before you start dinner, and I promise you your whole house will smell fabulous. So let's get it in the oven. Now, I do want to mention, if this were any fuller, meaning if my topping were humped up over this, or, you know, I've got a little room here, I would put this on a baking sheet that was lined because it may bubble over, but it's really not so full that I've got to worry about that. But if your pan is really brimming over, then you will want to put that on a baking sheet because you do not want that to drip on your oven and then you have a mess to clean up. See how my rack is kind of in the middle? That's exactly where you want it. 350 degrees. 30, 35 minutes until it's beautiful and golden. That butter will melt and it will help it to become golden and the juices will be bubbling all over. I'm going to take a quick break, clean this mess up. When I come back, we're going to get started on a fresh vegetable soup. I'll be right back with you in just a minute. Psalm chapter 23, verse 2 says that He maketh me to lie down in the green pastures. Okay, for a moment, close your eyes. Picture yourself in a field of green with the wildflowers growing all around you. Your spirit calm, your spirit still. What do you feel? When I think of that and I see myself lying in those green pastures, I am so happy. This scripture to me speaks happiness. It lets us know that our Heavenly Father cares enough about us to put us in places in life to bring joy, to bring happiness to our soul and our spirit. Allow yourself to be calmed today. Allow God to make you to lay in those green pastures. All right, now our crisp is in the oven and we're going to get started on our vegetable soup. I love soup. Eat it year round. I am not one of those people that think it has to be cold outside to have soup. I make soups year-round. And in the summertime, especially when there's lots of wonderful vegetables, I'm just peeling an onion here, just a medium-sized onion that we're going to start out with on our soup. When the summer is here and the vegetables are just beautiful and just scrumptious, I love to make vegetable soups, and that's what we're doing today. I've got a stock pot here, a 6-quart stock pot, just preheating. And I have 1 medium onion. I'm using a white onion because that's what looked good today, but if you have a yellow onion or a red onion, either one would work. It doesn't matter. Just 1 medium onion. You want a medium dice on it. If you have one of those little choppers, and I do somewhere, I use that sometimes too, because it makes me cry. There is no secret. I hear all the time, how do you not cry when you chop onions? There is no secret. It just simply is going to make you cry. I do find, though, because sometimes I wear contacts. If I have my contacts in, I don't cry. So it has to have something to do with the colored part of your eye, but I don't know what it is. So in my pan, I'm going to add just a couple of tablespoons of, I'm just using canola oil. You could use vegetable oil or extra virgin olive oil if you wanted to. Let that get hot. And we're going to add our onion. All good soups, in my opinion, start with onion. There's just very few things I cook soup-wise that doesn't start with onion. So just put 1 good onion in there. And let that kind of hang out for a minute. I've got a couple of carrots. Again, this is one of those recipes that you could customize to whatever kind of vegetables that your family likes. And honestly, a lot of times when I'm at home, I make soup, I will use frozen vegetables because I really like the flavor of frozen vegetables. But if it's summertime and your vegetables are in season and they look good, then, by all means use the fresh. It's up to you. I'm just going to dice up a couple of carrots. I want it to be about the same size as my onion, so cut it in half. If it's thick, you can cut it again, but if not, just cut it into little planks and then turn all the little planks sideways and cut that, and just go ahead and chop it and put it in your pot as you get it done. Make room on your cutting board. I had a good email the other day from a viewer that wanted to know about this particular cutting board. And she has trouble finding the big boards. And I'll tell you, you can find some really nice boards now at your kitchen supply stores. And they last you a lifetime if you take care of them. Make sure that you always wash it with soap and water when you're done, and that a couple of times a year you use food grade mineral oil on there and just kind of go over it. And I promise you, when you take good care of them, they will last you a lifetime. And don't ever use your wooden cutting boards for raw meat. If you'll notice, I always have that plastic mat on there that you can throw in the dishwasher, or another kind of cutting board, because I don't want to get those germs down in the knife marks. Your board will have knife marks on it, and the raw meat germs will get down in there. So always, use a separate board for your meat, but your wooden cutting boards are just wonderful. The bamboo boards that are popular now, I have one of those at home that I use sometimes, and I really like it too. The bamboo does a great job with cutting boards. Don't ever use glass. That brings up a good point. A surface like the cooktop that I have here, which is a glass type cooktop, you can buy cutting boards that are made of glass. Don't do it, because it will ruin your knives. It will dull them, it will nick your blades, and they're a knife's worst enemy, so don't use the glass. Couple of stalks of celery, because that's my favorite. I love celery. Absolutely love it. I know some people don't, but I do. It's my soup, so I'm going to put it in there. If you're making it and your family doesn't, leave it out. Any of these vegetables, if your family doesn't like them, leave it out. It's okay. Minimize your chopping by just cutting it in half, and then you got half the number of strokes. Always hold your fingers back. We're going to do a Cooking 101 type show one day where we just do simple basic skills, because a lot of people, I'm amazed. I grew up in the kitchen with my mom, and so I just kind of grew up learning how to do things, and I just assume everybody knows how to chop an onion. And I get a lot of emails of people that really don't, and so I want to, we're going to work on that together and get you in the kitchen and get you cooking with your family, because it's so important. Now I have 2 cloves of garlic, fresh garlic. Don't put the garlic in until you have something else in that pan, because garlic, again, take your garlic, put it down, take your knife over it, smack it with your hand. It gets that. Don't waste your money on those little garlic peelers and stuff. You got a knife, does a great job. But garlic, back to that, garlic is something that will burn very easily, and it is horrible if it burns or scorches. So make sure you have something else in your pan before you put your fresh garlic in there. Chop it up, or if you have a garlic press, you can use a garlic press. I'm working with that a little more now. I used to didn't have one, and I tried one, and I actually like it. So sometimes I do. If I want a finer mince, I use my garlic press. But for this, I'm just going to chop my knife. Put your tip of your knife on your board. Hold it with your other hand. Work with your shoulder. That's what you're lifting with, is your shoulder. And you're just mincing the garlic. Just like that. As fine as you like it. The more you do this, the finer it will be. And put that in there. Wipe our hands off here. Stir that up. We're just really kind of softening these vegetables. Add a little bit of salt. I would say about, I don't know, 2 teaspoons or so of salt, because we are going to use a broth, a canned stock product, so it of course has lots of sodium in it. And then our pepper. You know me, I love fresh ground pepper and everything. I love pepper meals. Just use different ones, whatever strikes my fancy that day. I like pepper meals. If you ever try freshly ground pepper, I promise you'll never go back to that pre-ground stuff again. World of difference in the flavor, and I wish you could smell that. That smells so very, very good. Delicious. Now, let me show you a little trick that I've showed you before, but maybe you didn't catch that show. Fresh corn, you could use frozen, but corn is in season right now, so I'm going to use a whole ear. Everybody has one of these bump pans, and if you don't, just turn a bowl upside down inside of another bowl. But what this will do is catch the kernels to where they're not flying all over your kitchen. And just cut down, just like that. And you see, I'll show you when I get done. It all goes inside the little container of the bump pan, and it's not all over your countertop. Because I did this not long ago at home. I was just, be honest, not wanting to go out and get my bump pan. Thought I'd take a shortcut, and I did it. And I had to clean my whole kitchen counter because I had corn everywhere. See, look there. It's all down in there. None of it's on the countertop. So, and just put your corn in there. You could use frozen, about, I don't know, half a cup. We're going to just let those saute for just a second. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to get the rest of this in there and let it simmer, and then we're going to make the most delicious turkey and roasted red pepper sandwich. Be back with you in just a minute. Hey, and welcome back. Now our vegetables are sauteing. Now over the break, I just quickly went ahead and diced a couple of potatoes. And let me show you how I do that, because I want to add some potatoes to our soup. I'll leave the skins on. I just scrub them because I personally think that the potato skin adds a lot of fiber. It adds a lot of flavor, and I like it. But if you don't like it, you can peel it. Take your potatoes. I'm using 3 medium little potatoes here. Cut them in half. Cut them in half again. Cut them in planks. And again, just in a dice about the same size as your other vegetables. And there you go, there's your potatoes. I'm going to add about half a cup or so of just frozen lima beans, because I like them. If your family doesn't, leave them out and just put those back in the freezer for another day. I'm going to add 1 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes, 1 bay leaf, and about a tablespoon of dried basil. And I have a combination of 8 cups of broth. I used 4 cups of chicken and 4 cups of vegetable broth. You use whatever you like. If you like all chicken, use all chicken. If you want to use all vegetable, use all vegetable. You could add beef. You could use whatever kind of stock you like. I just like the combination of the vegetable with the chicken broth, because the chicken adds just a little bit of flavor. If you want to keep this completely vegetarian, use all vegetable broth. Now, really all we need to do is let that simmer. We're going to let those vegetables simmer for about 20 minutes. Then we're going to add some pasta. We're going to add some macaroni, and our crisp should be done in just a few minutes. All right, now our soup has been cooking for about 20 minutes, and I want to show you. It smells so good. Oh, I wish you could smell it. And it looks just so beautiful. Look how good that looks. Yum, yum. The final step is I've got about, I don't know, a cup of just macaroni, elbow macaroni. You could use orzo, you could use broken spaghetti, you could use whatever you wanted. I just like macaroni, and my husband likes macaroni in this. He fusses if I put anything other than elbow macaroni, so that's for him. And that just needs to cook for about 6 or 7 minutes. I've got some fresh chopped parsley. I'm going to add, I don't know, a couple of tablespoons of fresh parsley, because that just adds flavor to it and just makes it so scrumptious. So let's just barely cover that a little bit. You don't want to overdo it, because that pasta will, of course, cook up. Now, I have a loaf of, well, I bought the Italian bread, but you could get Italian or French bread, either one, just some kind of good hearty bread. But this is just what looked good today. And I just cut it in half. And I'm going to use some baby spinach leaves. I've got my oven turned up to about 425, 450, because I'm going to melt this cheese. I've got my baking sheet lined, as you can see, with parchment paper, because I don't want the cheese to overflow too much. I like spinach, so that's what I'm using. If you don't like spinach and you want to use some other kind of green, absolutely you do that. You use what you like. Arugula would be fabulous on this. And really, I'm finding arugula more and more often now. And I love it. This is a simple sandwich, but it's so very good alongside your soup. This is just a jar of roasted red peppers that you get over there where you get the pickles and all of that, the olives and so forth. This is just a jar that I drained. I love these things. If you have fresh ones from your garden or the farmer's market, use those. But I didn't have any, but I like the jarred, so it's perfectly fine. Just lay those out in a single layer. And here's where you can use your imagination. I'm using pepper jack cheese, but if you don't like pepper jack cheese and you want to use provolone or whatever your family likes you use, I'm just using pepper jack because that's what we like. Just, I don't know, 4 or 5 slices, just enough to cover your bread, however much cheese you like. And I've just got some good smoked turkey from the deli, and I'm just layering that on there. I've got about 1 pound of turkey. You could use ham, you could use roast beef, you could use whatever you like, whatever your family likes. My Austin would want roast beef. He loves roast beef. Loves it, loves it, loves it. And I'll sandwich it so good. Might as well just use all this. I'm not using any mayonnaise or anything like that because truthfully, I just would rather have a sandwich without it. But if you want to use mayonnaise or anything like that, you could later, after we get it out of the oven, put it on there. And some fresh ground pepper. I'm not adding any salt because the turkey, of course, is preserved with some salt. Just some pepper. Into the oven, just to kind of warm it through and melt that cheese. Take about, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes or so. So just put it in your oven. After I took my fruit crisp out, I just turned my oven up to 450 degrees. And speaking of the fruit crisp, let me show you. Oh, look at this, how delicious this looks. That is very, very hot, so I've got to be real careful. But that's our wonderful fruit crisp that we took out of the oven, and I'm just letting it cool. If you have any vanilla ice cream in your freezer, serve it with some vanilla ice cream. It would be absolutely scrumptious with some vanilla ice cream, vanilla bean, so good. Stir your pasta so it stick to the bottom of your pot. Now, we did put a bay leaf in there, remember? Now's the time to take that bay leaf out. You can't eat bay leaves. So take that out of there. This needs to cook for just a couple more minutes, and then we will eat. All right, now our soup is done. Look how delicious this is. Let's just ladle up a bowl of it. Yum, yum. You just want it to cook until the macaroni is al dente, which means to the tooth in Italian. If you had some Parmesan cheese, you could grate that over. It would be yummy, but I don't have any today. So this is our sandwich, and we just took it. It was in the oven for about, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes, just until that cheese melted. And I want to put the top on, kind of press that down. And this sandwich will feed some people. Now look here, how good, yum. See the wonderful turkey and the cheese and those beautiful red peppers, just scrumptious. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful meal to feed your family. Delicious. I got some soup out because I love soup, like I shared with you. This is just one of my favorite things. This is a wonderful, delicious, and healthy meal that you can serve your family any time of the year. It doesn't have to be just in the cold months, and you can use frozen vegetables and just mix it up however you like. But it's delicious and it's healthy, and always taste for seasoning. Don't talk with your mouth full. Hot. So good. Taste for seasoning. You might want to add a little more salt in it for your taste. I'm not a real big salt eater, so you might want to add a little more salt or pepper for your family. Try these recipes. Let me know what you think. Our wonderful hearty vegetable soup, our delicious sandwiches, and our wonderful crisp. Thanks for joining with me, and I'll see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.